And I usually wouldn't, care, but apparently, we still have a couple of bugs that exist in the base StarCraft 2 game, I guess. And the mod, the very specific mod they're supposed to use for competition is fix some of those bugs. One of which includes the shield battery bug, which, MaxPax would usually benefit the most from. I mean, Protoss in general, of course, but yeah. Anyway, top left MaxPax, bottom right Clem. If they both don't care and just use WCS GameHeart, then that's fine. As a commentator, all I care about is those worker pop-up kills. It's true. It's true. So this is obviously the billionth time that we've seen these two fight, but actually one of the first best of threes in a while, I want to say. For the European Open Cups, anyway. They do play in other tournaments like the World Team League and Kung Fu Cup and stuff. But a lot of their European Open Cups have been in the finals because that's just the way that seeding has worked out. Seeding not really changing frequently since we don't have frequent big tournaments that actually give a lot of points. The Open Cups do give some points, but hardly enough to really change the seeding. But someone pointed out in chat, Astrea signed up for the European Cup today, which apparently changed the seeding just enough that this is a semis, not a finals. Hopefully that's not me. Thank goodness. Dead fast. Get that loser out of here.
Game paused.
And it's also in the beginning of the game, so really unimportant. Just a little annoying.
Game resumed.
So I don't know when exactly, the last time they played in the European Open Cup best of 3 was, but I'm seeing one in November, early November. So it's been, 2 months, 2 months, 2.5. It seems like, if I'm just glancing very quickly, but, well, that's somewhat interesting. Not the most interesting thing you've ever heard. What is nice to follow is whenever MaxPax seems to have figured out Clem and wins against him, whether or not that's actually true or if it was just an anomaly. So last week we had Clem lose to MaxPax 0-3 after being on a win streak against him for the past 5 times they played. Before that it was MaxPax twice. Then it was Clem, 8 times in a row. So Clem has been, favored, certainly between these two for at least the last year. Maybe before that it was a little 50-50, but the last year it's been something like 70-30. But every now and again, MaxPax will just, show the usual stuff, really. Maybe, a little bit better, of course, or Clem will be a little bit worse, but he'll dominate. So the last time they met, it was a 3-0. And the first game, if I recall correctly, was kind of cool and close. And the other 2 games were surprisingly one-sided. But this was... Reaper to survive. That was also, literally 12 hours, something like that, after Clem's insane WTL run, in which he was basically grinding through a lower bracket MLG, for those who are old enough to remember that. I mean, an insane ask against all the best players in the world. And for a long period of time, he was playing StarCraft 2. So maybe he was tired. But can't come up with that excuse unless he wins this best of 3 here today, 2-0, in dominating fashion. And then you do wonder, okay, maybe it was Clem being a little bit worse than MaxPax actually figuring something out. Now, Clem is cheesing a little bit here. We got a proxy factory, a second factory, of course. So we're going to have a lot of Cyclones coming on out. MaxPax going for a Stargate opener right into that Phoenix. Not uncommon for him, but of course, there's always that chance he's also going into a Twilight Council. This time around, it is Phoenix, and Clem does not know about that. The Reaper was successfully denied entry into the main base and was successfully killed. Thought it was safe way over to the right side, and the Adept kept chasing, so Clem wasn't expecting it. But it looks like MaxPax, figures something is up. He sees that there's still no command center anywhere that he can see, so he is going to bother scouting first and foremost with that Phoenix. I wouldn't have been surprised if he had gone in a proxy starport direction, but he actually went right to this middle portion of the left side of the map. So perhaps dealing with something similar in previous games. Void Ray is started upon that scout. I believe that was the exact moment. Chronoed instantly as well. But I gotta say, Cyclones are pretty freaking good against all air units. If you have a combination of Phoenix, Shield Battery, and ground units, then Phoenix can lift and the units can focus fire, and the Cyclones will get a chance to basically bop you, because that's what they would do if you were missing any one of those components. But it looks like we do have a serious defense lined up. MaxPax has figured out exactly what's going on, but can Clem still win? It is totally all in on one base. SCVs have been pulled. 10 Cyclones are available. Phoenix make the mistake, I guess, of scouting for this. Immediately get hit to half health. Void Ray is only so freaking helpful, honestly. Like, I actually don't think it really is. The Phoenix will lift 2 Cyclones out of the equation, but still so much DPS. Actually, the Phoenix getting burned down despite the shield battery overcharge, and nothing else is actually holding up against the Cyclones, and the overcharge only will last so long. 5 Stalkers and an Adept and a Pro Pool is all that is left over. The SCVs have been killed already, and their Void Ray will pop out, but 3 Cyclones, 4 Cyclones still being made at a time, rallying across the map, and those shield batteries are almost out of juice. An aggressive forward movement from the Cyclones does get the Void Ray, and is looking for the finale of this game. I think MaxPax is going to fall against a 2-base Cyclone all-in. It's a decent number of Stalkers, but man, they really need these shield batteries to actually have juice. You can see that they actually got deleted pretty freaking quickly. Yeah, this 2-base all-in, it's freaking feisty, man. I actually, like, not to say that I would know better, because I don't. I absolutely don't. This is the first time I've seen such a tactic from the likes of Clem. But, ooh, that was a little awkward, having to run past the Void Ray that was being supercharged healed. Okay, that was good movement there from MaxPax. Huh? Well, bad movements from Clem, good moments from MaxPax. Wait, hold on. All right, maybe this game isn't over yet. We'll see. Void Ray once again grabbing one of the Cyclones. Not the second one, though. Forced to sacrifice a Stalker to get it, but that is the last Cyclone on the field. Only a handful of Marines here to help out. Perhaps Clem too aggressive with the Cyclones, going to the main base. That one shield battery overcharge with the one Void Ray. Killing 3, or was that 4 Cyclones, is the only reason that MaxPax is going to win this game. So I was gonna say, I actually didn't think the Void Ray was the right call when it looked like it was game over, but certainly if it's over in overcharge, then, you know, it's pretty freaking good. Maybe it's still not over. 4 Cyclones still being produced. I mean, it's still a viable 1-base economy for the Terran. Supercharge once again activated, gonna save the 2nd base of the Protoss yet again, but that is kind of the fight right now. It's overcharge available versus Cyclone push. You know, like, Clem is not going to push in with only a few Cyclones. He's going to wait for probably 4, seems to be a magic number. So then that gives time for the overcharge to replenish, and then if he does push in when an overcharge is available, he can't really beat that, and that's the challenge, and it seems like the Cyclones might still win out in this challenge. Yeah, overcharge just so necessary. Yeah. Once again, probes have to be pulled. I mean, Jesus. This game, it refuses to be determined. MaxPax only working with the gateways at this point, though, too. And that has been also hurting him, is that he's run out of steam officially at this point. But he was slowly running out of steam as the last 60 seconds happened, because he was not able to afford 3 gateways production, shield batteries being replaced, and Stargate production. If he actually had even 1 or 2 Stargate units, Phoenix or Void Ray, available towards those last few seconds, I think he actually does hold. But he couldn't afford it because he had to pull the probe so often. And even though his economy, number-wise, looked a little bit better than Clem's, obviously Mule's, and just the price of the respective units, Cyclone's relatively cheap. They're the same price as a Stalker. So he's just making 4 Stalkers at a time, able to do so, where MaxPax doesn't quite get the same benefit of making 4 Stalkers at a time, which he can't. He only has 3 gateways. But even if he was, like, matching, I suppose, then you could see it always came down to the ability to focus fire, the ability to have an overcharge. Stalkers do, without blink, certainly, lose out against the Cyclones if they're microed. All right, well, that did end up coming to the point that I thought it would. A couple more question marks than I was expecting. Clem's 2 are 1 base Cyclone all in. And now that we officially have the end of it, I suppose, I guess I will throw out an idea there. Usually, you know, I get to see these things so often, and I'm like, well, this is how it worked in the last time we saw this, and that's why that guy held, or that's why that guy lost. But that's the first time I've seen it Certainly in like a super high professional matchup, I guess I've had it done to me. It doesn't count though. And I think the Void Ray might have been a mistake, but it is really hard to tell. I do think it certainly got close enough that Clem isn't going to be super, super confident about doing it again. But we will see. In the bottom left, it is MaxPax. Top right of Hecate, it is Clem. I think just because the Void Ray, it's so powerful when the Shield Ready Overcharge saves it. But if it's going to get burned down, then I do wonder if the crowd control aspect of a Phoenix would have been better. I feel like I'm the only person on this earth that says the score correctly, which is the player who won the map that was 1, then the 0. But that's a very specific grievance. Yeah, you know what I mean, though. Like, the third Cyclone being taken out of commission, would that have been better than the Void Ray, which was only adding in DPS for so long? Because on Prismatic Alignment, it can get out-microed. So the Cyclone can theoretically back away in time. I mean, it's a case of range versus, you know, the amount of DPS that's being thrown out. But then if the Void Ray itself is going to be the target of, like, literally 10 Cyclones, right? Then that gets powered down, where the Phoenix wouldn't have been able to kill any of the Cyclones, but would have crowd-controlled one. It is actually really hard. Really hard to say exactly what is the right maneuver there. You know, as Phoenix, if they didn't scout, would have had full health, and that might have lasted just a little bit longer and actually could have been important. I don't know. It's, Well, we'll see if that happens again. And the problem, of course, is that not only is Clem unlikely to do the factory again, second factory, but it's also unlikely that it perfectly matches up against the Protoss Stargate opening. So, yeah, for MaxPax, maybe just right now, hoping that it doesn't happen. Maybe he knows that if he did just go for a Twilight Council, it would have been better, because he certainly plays a lot more games than I do and might have already interacted with that build multiple times. But he is convinced it's not going to be that build again this time around. He did do a little bit of scouting on the map. He knows that it is a factory expand of some sort, but he did a little bit of scouting and then actually used the probe to go for a proxy gateway. So he's going to go for 3 gateways. His early aggression versus still a little bit of early aggression from Clem. Not the same as a 2-factory build. A command center's on the way. A 3rd command center's on the way. Okay, he's using this non-greedy opener to be rather greedy. But I would still say that... Cyclones. I would still say that Cyclones are great to have in the situation, actually. Maybe a tank is still the ultimate best unit to have if you're defending your one base on the high ground. But Cyclones are pretty freaking good. Now, Clem does not know that this is happening. He knows there's a Nexus, so it's on a 1-base all-in from the Protoss, but he doesn't know if it's a Stargate, Twilight Council, 4-gate, 3-gate, or no technology straight into 3-gate. And that's exactly what it is. So the Cyclones being out on the map, potentially surrounded, unable to go home, has suddenly made this a very bad opener. And Clem also, not realizing he'll be under such heavy aggression, has also stopped producing Cyclones. If he figured out this was happening, and it looks like he is keen on scouting whatever it is, he is finally going to see the gateway, then producing more Cyclones is the easy answer, and that's exactly what he's going to do. The Cyclones finding not just that it is a proxy gateway, but also being able to kill the pylon obviously turns this once again around. We've gone 360. You know, it was Clem favored, then at 180 to MaxPax favored, then at 360 back to Clem's favor. So Clem should be okay. Not going to be able to kill the gateway and has to be careful about that force field, but if he does save the 2 Cyclones, plays the Ring Around the Rosie game, buys time for the Cyclones back at home to produce and a bunker to finish, he's going to be A-okay, and he's going to have 3 CC up against a 2-base Protoss. Now, 2-base isn't the worst place to be, but it's a 2-base Protoss that's not really advancing themselves into the mid-game so much. They focus a lot on the early game, and even though those 2 Cyclones were bought by that force field, it clearly is not going the way that MaxPax was intending. Especially once he sees that it is a 3rd CC build, which he can't quite tell. He would have seen that was a 2nd barracks. I mean, I guess it's... Nah, I feel like, you know, you can really go either way. That could have been a third barracks for all he knows, and the starport's somewhere else after a second command center was done. It is possible that he will figure in the list of build orders that he knows a Terran can do, even though he doesn't play Terran. He might also recognize that second barracks timing could be the third CC, second barracks. But this observer is going to be the actual confirmation. No, that would have been the third barracks. I mean, I'm all over the place. Replace second barracks with third barracks and everything I just said. And now, yeah, it is a 3-1 setup. Starport heavily delayed, but not necessary. So aggression will also be delayed, you know. That's something to work off of for MaxPax. But MaxPax, 1 base. Damn, man. I can't count today. 2 base attack didn't work out. 3 base setup would be woefully late compared to Clem's. So going for not quite a 2 base all in here, but going for a 2 base attack nonetheless. It's probably the right thing to do there. Adept goes for a scout in the main. Actually sees that there's a couple of cyclones waiting there. That was not a win of mine. That was the bunker canceling, I guess, which Clem might wish he still had that bunker in the high ground. Immortal and 2 stalkers do manage to take down one of the cyclones, but this is small potatoes. As he knows is a third CC. His goal here is to shave off what he can. Preempt any move out. But then that's actually just a really weird moment right there. Clem should not have been doing that. That was really weird. Clem realizing he also made a mistake. I don't know what that was, actually. There's no reason to have his 2 tanks in such a forward position, because he's not really ready to move out yet. I guess he was literally ready to move out and hoping that his opponent had entirely escaped. That was not the case. And then if he was able to move out, the Medivacs would have teamed up with his push around this midway point. That's probably what he was doing, but it was an awfully dangerous play. And it's exactly what MaxPax, again, I was trying to explain he wants to do. Shave off what he can, preempt the move out, so that he can do exactly that, catch Clem off guard. And then, ultimately, be buying all this time to get some type of decent economy and decent defensive setup back at home, which he's usually pretty good at. I mean, this is one of the better things to point out as to why MaxPax is so good. Oh, yeah, the Disruptor! Jesus, not gonna shoot. And if the Disruptor doesn't shoot, then the Protoss army might just be goner. Oh, God, the War Prism is so injured, but he's gonna save that Colossus. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, and the Immortal actually still packing a couple of punches against the leftover Marauders. The tank's no longer involved in that fight, and somehow MaxPax manages to make something happen there. That looked like it was borderline disaster. And I guess it's still not good for the Protoss, but good lord, he almost lost his entire army, War Prism, and Colossus. Whew. Well, that was Clem taking a, aggressive stance against an aggressively positioned Protoss. He could fall back to the tanks and reinforcements and an SCV pull, and he didn't have to. He instead actually did just do that and get his third CC up and running and saturated, which, well, obviously wasn't as fast as it could have been, is still plenty fast. All the SCVs transferring and pretty much instantly saturating that third base is good signs. And MaxPax, well, he did get his 3 base up and his own economy set and 3 base saturation, totally fine, great, Gucci. He did save his Colossus and the War Prism, which is always a threat, even though it's super, super, super injured. He did lose a lot of units. And while it wasn't the most expensive slow building units, it still is not usually that net gain for the Protoss when that type of situation happens. MaxPax setting up once again for his little tricks here. And the common trick, right? Zealots. Zealots in your base, zealots in your face. That's what he's gonna do. It's not really a trick, it's a totally sound strategy. But the point is, that's something that he really has to depend on. And I guess why I would still call it more of a trick than a strategy is 1, because I'm super heavily biased, obviously. But then 2, It's because it does kind of depend on the Terran player messing up at this point, because it is so obvious that it's going to happen, that it is something the Protoss has to rely on, that it's really more so the question of whether or not the Terran is well prepared for it, as opposed to it being a particular cleverness, I guess, I suppose. That's a pretty brutal position for the Protoss. That army is so bunched up. Fortunately, second pylon will keep that shield bed overcharge alive a little bit longer, but not much. 2 tanks just getting to blast away like that the entire time was really the worst possible position for MaxPax. Vikings also able to take down all but 1 Colossus, and now eyeing the last one. Disruptor gets popped. Backup Disruptor, unlikely to really get a juicy hit, and the Warp Prism was dealt with A-OK, no problem. And it's not even that Clem is, you know, it forgets that Protoss will do that. It is more of a question of whether or not his production lines up with the harassment. But in this case, it absolutely 100% did. Took care of the Warp Prism, or at least the drop-off into the main base, and the Warp Prism evacuated, try to do something else. That's also not really going to work, and Clem will hold on to a 40 supply lead after killing his opponent's 4th Nexus. Wouldn't mind still popping off and bothering the Zealots even. All good things for the Terran, as that 4th base also completed during the push, turning into a planetary. 1-1 upgrades during that push too, so continuing on with the upgrade lead, as though MaxPax is double forging at this point. 2-1s on the way. Actually feels confident enough to grab DT Blink as well. Confident / is a gamble. Actually, I should say that it could be a gamble, because it's definitely a chunk of change. You would argue he needs to the front line right now, but if he does get it and he does warp in, let's say 4 to 6 DTs, that will take care of the bunker at the 3rd base. But we're not there yet. Once again, on the ropes around that 4th base, bunched up against the 2 tanks, just able to free fire, and Clem will indeed take the 2-0.